I've never been too much into reality TV. I have never seen Love Island. I have watched maybe one episode of Love is Blind and few episodes of 90 Days Fiancé. So these weren't really my thing. I preferred, anime, comic books, films. So imagine my surprise where I got caught in a group of a story that is based around a reality TV program. And the webtoon that I'm talking about is Couple Breaker. We're gonna get into some spoilers in this video. I'm gonna try not to spoil it too heavily. However, we're gonna talk about the storyline a bit. I don't know the ending yet because the series is still ongoing. I believe it is finishing soon based on the description in the latest episodes, but I am not a fast passer as it stands, so I'm only gonna focus on the episodes that I have read so far, like the regular episodes. So there is no worry that I will reveal the ending to you because I don't know it myself. I kind of have a hunch, but you know how it is with these romance series. They usually have quite a predictable ending, but it doesn't make it less enjoyable as long as the story is good. And the story is actually quite good. It's really entertaining. Before we get to the actual reality TV component of the series, we get a brief introduction to our main characters. We meet our girl, Taryn, who is a fashion major and she is in the process of opening her very first business. She's very strong-willed and bold in her fashion choices, and she's also people pleaser, but not in this kind of like a bad sense that she's, letting others walk over her. She's actually very helpful to others. She's always trying to uplift them. We meet her when she's in a relationship with her boyfriend, which is, I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, is like Jonmo, something like that. He's an Instagram model. And she's actually kind of like his manager. She's helping him with his fashion choices. She's doing photographs of him. She's helping him with his PR, if you know what I mean. She's essentially a person who is kind of behind his career, and this is something that he can feel very much. And the help that she gives him and all of the support that she provides him with is kind of like a double-edged sword for him, because on one hand he's obviously using her help to a maximum degree and juicing it hard, so he's actually very successful at some point. But on the other hand, he's also painfully aware that without her he would not be able to reach his full potential, so he harbors a lot of resentment towards her for it, because he essentially rightfully so thinks that without her, he would be kind of bland and he wouldn't be able to get what he wants. And the second couple that we meet is our second lead couple, which consists of Yoonsik and Jua. Jua is an ex-K-pop idol that had some rough experiences while she was pursuing that career, and she went hiding and she literally disappeared from public life. Yoonsik is her boyfriend and a musician who is trying to get her out of her shell and make her believe in herself again. The words that would describe him the best would be probably he's just like a sweet guy. He essentially, he writes her a song. He's always trying to, encourage her. He is a shoulder to cry on. He's always helping her. And the weird dynamic between them comes from the fact that not only he is a loving boyfriend, but he's also a big fan of her as a music artist. He actually knew her while she was a K-pop artist and somehow worked out that it was her and they got together. So he absolutely puts her on that pedestal. He's enamored by her. He's essentially looking at her through rose-tinted glasses all the time. And he kind of fails to see her dark side because she's actually full of darkness that he kind of ignores in order to bring out the light in her. But the darkness kind of takes over because she has a lot of resentment, but not towards him, at least initially, but towards herself. She actually actively kind of hates herself, and because she has such a huge amount of hatred for herself, she doesn't believe him when he says he loves her and cares for her. So the dynamic is very toxic. He's also always going out of his way to persuade her that, she's the one, while she's always very, doubtful and wrapped in her own little bubble that she doesn't let him into. So we have these two couples, and our main character, Taryn, is actually a very kind of a girl's girl, so she has a lot of female friendships. And it's really cool how the story portrays these, because quite often I find myself to be reading stories where female friendship is either kind of like, ignored entirely. So our female leads, they don't have any female friends. They quite often are surrounded by cute dudes that are trying to get with them, but they don't really have any kind of a female friend that they can rely on. And if they do, that female friend is kind of like a prop for them to be venting about the male lead or the love interest, and that's their sole kind of role in the story. But in here we see that, these relationships actually play into the story, and one big example of that is actually Taryn's relationship with Jua herself, because they meet at school, and Taryn is very outgoing. She's kind of like the opposite of Jua. Jua is very withdrawn and very kind of sensitive, to the point of, it feels like she's this like leaf shaking in the wind, and any harder blow from wind will actually blow it away. She's in very kind of like the fragile state, while Taryn is living her best life. She's on her way to achieve her dream of opening her store. She's kind of, riding that energy. She's, very confident. She's very bold. And we see that Jua is actually very envious of that. And it's a funny dynamic because they essentially become friends, but even though there are friends and Taryn is adhering to the girl code, Jua really doesn't, because she is so jealous of Taryn and she is so wrapped up in her own toxic way of thinking about herself that she actually ends up, upon meeting Taryn's boyfriend, she cheats on Yunsik with him, and Taryn's boyfriend cheats on Taryn with her. And they get together. They seem to be living the best life. They're all over social media, posting pictures of each other, and apparently seeming like, they made their dreams come true. And I think the final straw, if I remember well, is that Yunsik actually writes a song for Jua, and I think she records it or something. And it's kind of that tipping point of the story, I guess. So when Taryn finds out that Jua and her ex are attending the reality TV show in order to boost their popularity, she decides on her own kind of vengeance plan, just to basically take them down a notch. They hurt Taryn, they hurt Yunsik, and they don't seem to have any sort of remorse for it, and they're very kind of flashy with their relationship. So Taryn is rightfully pissed, and she decides that she's gonna join forces with Yunsik, who she doesn't really have a lot of sympathy for to begin with. Those two couples actually lived near each other. They're kind of like neighbors, so we get all of the angles connected with each other. So Taryn is both, she's Jua's friend, but then she's also kind of a Yunsik's adversary, because they have some kind of like a argument over trash bins or something like that. And then she also, obviously knows her ex, and her ex, he gets to know Yunsik, and he's obviously in a relationship with Jua, but he then later on has still like the longing for Taryn, because as we could have all predicted, once he ends up without her, all of his appeal to his fan base starts to fade away, because she played a very vital role in his public image, essentially co-creating his public persona as this Instagram model. And he cannot say the same thing about his new relationship, because Jua is very focused on herself. So these are two very kind of like people that have very big focus on their own careers, and at first, it seems to be that they're supporting each other, going to that show together, but sooner than later we find out that each one of them is kind of playing their own drum, and they just happen to be in a relationship, but the support is not really quite there as they initially thought it was. And the way to enact that vengeance that Taryn comes up with, Taryn and Yunsik themselves pretend to be a couple and join Jua and Jeonmo in Couple Breaker, which is the name of the show. There are also two other couples that join, and these two couples also have quite interesting dynamics. One of them is the couple that the girl is literally she is the type of person who brings guns to a knife fight. She literally straight away jumps into the action and starts flirting with everyone, because they get like scores for interactions between someone from the opposing couple. So they don't really get any points for the interaction they have within their couples. Actually, they're not allowed to touch most of the time, but if they flirt or if they touch or kiss or do whatever with a person who belongs to another couple, they get scores. And that girl is she's absolutely going crazy with it. And the other couple, the last couple that joins them, is a couple that are together for a very long time. A girl is very much in love with the guy. The guy seems to be in love with her at first, and he's like this sweet guy and all innocent, and he's portrayed to be like this decent guy. But as soon as he gets into some interactions with Yuri, which is a girl that I have just described, the one who is going crazy and flirts with everyone, he essentially starts emotionally cheating on his girlfriend first, and then it turns out that it is very likely that the cheating wasn't just emotional, it was also physical. So it's a whole mess and it's a very entertaining mess, to be honest with you. And the story is very dynamic. It changes quite quickly because essentially when they all join the show, it's like we are watching a reality TV. They have different challenges, they have different quests they have to embark on, or they have some situations that happen to them, or they instigate in order to make as much money as possible. And we mostly get a lot of friction between the cheaters and the fake couple that at first obviously is fake, but then we see some feelings developing and bubbling under the surface. I like the fact that the story is very kind of action driven because of the whole nature of the show. So all of these challenges and angles of the program, like the couple breaker itself, kind of forces our characters into different situations, which are really interesting to read. We don't really get like the super detailed deep dive into the psyche of each character. We explore them enough so we can understand where they are coming from, which helps us in understanding both kind of the antagonists of the story. Obviously, especially Jeonmo, he's like the vile guy, honestly, like he's he does a lot of like horrible stuff, but we do kind of understand where he's coming from, because he essentially is like the guy who deep down believes that he is bland and uninteresting, and that's essentially the case, to be honest with you. And instead of like trying to work on himself, he's actually latching onto people that in his mind are kind of like elevating him as a person. And he does it to Tareen first, and then he meets Jua, and then he notices that Jua is actually, after her own goals, and she doesn't want to support him. He just kind of starts missing Tareen, not maybe her so much, but all the support that he was given by her. And he is quite a disgusting character. But even though he's disgusting, we understand why is he the way he is, because of low self-esteem. And same thing goes for Jua. With Jua is even deeper. She has some ED, she has some issues that are kind of making her a bit, antisocial. She's always trying to prove that she's worthy, but she fails, and you could tell that she's deeply miserable, because at first, even though she has the sweetest boyfriend, that is Yunsik, that is super supportive, he writes songs for her, he's like literally treating her like a goddess, she still can't find within herself to believe him or cherish herself more. She just, absolutely hates herself. And at first, it's kind of like she feels like this is the result of her relationship with him. Like, she actually, when she meets, Jeonmo, she thinks that if she switches partners, she could be that full, perfect version of herself that she aspires to be. And then she does, and for a while it works because it's very fresh and very surface level, because they are posting like loads of things on social media and they aren't challenged yet as a couple. They essentially, it feels like their goals align with one another. But as they get into the program, we see that that alignment falls apart, and we see cracks in the relationship. And she, as soon as these cracks appear, she kind of goes back to her default setting of being absolutely miserable, and she's just, moping around, feeling horrible. And I actually did feel sorry for her. She also did some vile stuff, don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of her. However, I kind of feel sad for the way she is, because it is shown to us that actually, there's no way that you could hate her more than she actually hates herself. So the story itself is very kind of like your basic romance story, I guess, where you have like the trope of people who pretend to be in a relationship. We have like the vengeance plot, and all of this it falls nicely. But I think the story is very entertaining. It's very action driven, but we also get enough insight into the characters, so the story doesn't feel flat like some other webtoons are out there. So I just wanted to briefly talk about it just to recommend it to you. If you're into reality TV, you definitely love that story. But if you're like myself, that you're not much into reality TV, I think you would still enjoy that webtoon. It's a very light read, so you're not walking away from it with some existential questions. But because of it, it's kind of like the comfort read, if you know what I mean. Sometimes you don't want to think too much, sometimes you just want to kind of, be entertained. So if that's what you're after, you would really like it. And I think I have to give the props to the author for creating a very, very sympathetic and believable female lead. It's very rare to see a character that is caring but is not a doormat. She has some strong boundaries that she doesn't allow people to cross, but also she's super caring and super kind person. So I just wanted to make a brief video to recommend this webtoon because it's finishing soon, and I think it's quite entertaining, especially when it gets increasingly colder and darker outside. So it's nice to have that kind of a comfort read. And the webtoon is ending soon, so for now we can read it for free. I am creating another longer video about the webtoon you have recommended me in the comment section under my previous video, which is Space Boy. I'm absolutely in love with it. Honestly, you guys, you send me on a journey to space with this one. I love it. Like, there's so much I want to talk about, so this is what I'm gonna be doing in my next video. For now, I wish you a very lovely week, and I'll speak to you later. Bye!